Every Christmas Eve, the townspeople of Woodridge gathered at the town square, eager to witness Santa Claus's arrival. Children clambered around the Christmas tree, their breath visible in the chilly air, eyes wide with wonder. The sound of jingling bells and the scent of pine needles filled the night, creating an atmosphere of warmth and excitement. For decades, this was the tradition. Year after year, children were promised gifts, and the streets were filled with the magic of the season. But this year was different. As the clock struck midnight, the familiar sleigh bells rang out across the town. But this time, something about the air felt off. A bitter cold swept through the streets, and the lights on the Christmas tree flickered strangely. It wasn't the usual Christmas Eve atmosphere. There was an unsettling quiet that settled over Woodridge, a sense of anticipation that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The door to the local bakery creaked open, and a figure stepped out. It was Santa Claus, or at least the man who appeared to be him. His round belly and white beard were as white and fluffy as the snow that dusted the ground, and his crimson suit was perfectly tailored. His smile was wide and warm, his eyes sparkling with mirth. He looked like every child's dream, a beacon of cheer and kindness. The children squealed in delight, rushing toward him with outstretched hands. But behind that smile, behind the twinkling eyes, there was something wrong, something that nobody noticed, not the parents nor the children. Only the old men and women who had lived through decades of Christmases could feel it, that strange sense of dread. His name was Nicholas, but he wasn't like the Santa Claus the stories told. He had once been a man who loved children, a man who cherished their innocence and pure hearts, but something had changed in him over the years. It was said that Santa Claus had been delivering presents to good children for centuries, but that wasn't the full truth. Nicholas had started his journey long before Christmas as a symbol of joy. He had once been a man who loved children, a man who cherished their innocence and pure hearts. But something had changed in him over the years, something that twisted his soul. No one knew when exactly it happened. Some said it was after the Great Fire of 1826. When an entire orphanage burned to the ground, Nicholas was the first to arrive at the scene, only to find the children's souls already slipping away into the abyss. Others claimed it was after a strange encounter with an old, mysterious man in a dark alley on a snowy Christmas Eve. Whatever it was, the man who once gave gifts, spread joy, and made children laugh soon became something far darker. He still delivered the gifts, but the presents were no longer just toys and sweets. He gave them something much more valuable, their souls. The children never questioned the magic of Christmas. They never wondered how Santa could deliver gifts to every house in one night. They never asked why they never remembered the moments when they received their presents, or why they always felt a strange heaviness in their chests when they woke up on Christmas morning. The truth was buried beneath layers of innocence, obscured by the joy of the holiday. But the parents, the ones who stayed awake, who kept an eye out for the man in red, knew the truth. They could feel it when Santa came. They could feel the coldness seep into their homes when he passed through, the unnatural chill that washed over them. The way the children slept soundly, but the air around them felt thick with something ancient, something that did not belong. But it wasn't until the year of 1954 that they fully understood the sinister ritual that had been taking place for centuries. It was little Emma Collins who first noticed something wasn't right. She had always been a curious child, asking questions when no one else dared. That Christmas Eve, she stayed awake, determined to see Santa Claus herself. She snuck downstairs, her heart racing, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. She peeked out the window and saw his sleigh, his reindeer grazing on the snowy lawn. Santa Claus was standing near the front porch, looking up at the stars. His eyes glittered, but they weren't warm. They were cold, dark, almost predatory. Emma felt a shiver run down her spine, but she didn't move. She had to see what would happen next. And then she saw it. From the large sack he carried, Santa pulled out a small wooden box, much too small for the toys he usually gave. He knelt beside it, his hand brushing the snow away from the porch. Inside the box, there was a flicker of light, a swirling glow. It was a soul of a child. Before Emma could gasp, a shadow appeared next to her, its cold fingers closing around her wrist. She spun around to see an old woman standing behind her, her face pale and gaunt, eyes sunken like hollows. "Don't look," the woman whispered, her voice a rasp. "Don't see what he does." Emma's heart pounded as she tried to pull away, but the woman held her firmly, her touch freezing cold. What does he do?" Emma asked, trembling. The old woman swallowed, her eyes filling with tears. "He takes them," she whispered. "The children, their souls. He steals them and delivers them to the one who waits for them." Emma's eyes widened, a scream rising in her throat. But the woman's hand covered her mouth, silencing her. "He's not Santa Claus, child. He's something else. Something that wears his skin, that steals his name. And the souls, they go to hell." Before Emma could speak again, the woman pushed her back into the shadows. "Stay hidden. You're not meant to see this." Emma watched, paralyzed with fear, as Santa Claus placed the glowing soul into the box, then closed it with a sinister smile. The sack on his back seemed to grow heavier with each soul he collected, the air growing colder, the shadows deeper. Then he turned, his eyes flicking toward the window. For a brief moment his gaze locked with Emma's, his smile widened. And then, just like that, he was gone. Years passed, and Emma grew up, but the memory of that night never left her. She moved away from Woodridge, unable to stay in the place where so many souls had been stolen. But on Christmas Eve, she would hear the jingling of bells and see the shadow of a sleigh passing through the night sky. She would never forget what she had seen, nor the dark truth behind the jolly old man in red. As the years went on, fewer children woke up on Christmas morning with their souls intact. The gifts were still there, but the laughter was gone. The joy had been replaced by an unsettling emptiness in their eyes, and Emma realized with growing horror that she had never been meant to live. She was just another soul who had escaped, and Santa, or whatever he was, would be coming for her eventually. The old woman's warning echoed in her mind as she lay in bed that night. Unable to sleep, the bells rang outside, distant but growing closer. It wasn't the sound of reindeer hooves on the roof that terrified her. It was the soft, whispering voice of Santa Claus calling her name, promising her a gift she could never refuse. "Come, Emma," he said, his voice like the crackling of burning coal. "It's time for you to come home." And in the darkness she knew she was no longer safe. The price of Christmas had always been paid in souls. And now it was her turn to give hers. The end. This chilling tale of Santa Claus reveals the dark secret behind the jolly man in red and the sinister price of his gifts. Every Christmas, the townspeople of Woodridge would gather, unaware of the true cost of their joy. But now you know the truth. Beware the man in the crimson suit, for the price of Christmas is paid in souls. Stay safe, and may your holidays be filled with light.